So far this year, we've shot about 100,000 rounds of 300 Blackout. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to talk to you guys about our experiences and what we found with this cartridge in these different weapon systems. Now, shooting 100,000 rounds a year, we've obviously found a lot of good things about the cartridge that we were very skeptical about at first. So we get a lot of questions in classes because we run a lot of 300 Black in classes. We get a lot of questions on email, so we thought we'd take the time to sit here and let you know what we think of it in kind of a layman's term video, especially if you're out there and you're looking through the websites and you see a lot of presentations and numbers and graphs and it just doesn't make sense to you. So we'll try to keep it simple here. When somebody hands me a new weapon system with a new cartridge per se, the first thing I want it to do is to be combat effective. And now that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean everything from CQB. So what do I need in CQB? And then obviously all the way to the longest range that cartridge is capable too. So what does that mean? So in CQB, I want a gun that runs as fast and as accurate as possible. Like 5.56 NATO, we know that we could take the gun and I can generally put 15 to 16 rounds in less than 2 seconds in a combat effective zone, a chest zone, in less than 2 seconds at 5, 7 to 10 yard line. Now that's very combat effective. That means the weapon's going to always come back and it's going to be easy to drive. My eyes can work with it as long as I feel the weapon system, as long as I know how to manage that recoil. So the 5.56 NATO platform is proven in that case. Now, I tested the 6.8 a long time ago. It's a great bullet, but the biggest problem we had in CQB operations was the management of recoil was very difficult. So we saw our score starting to go down because our combat effectiveness wasn't as fast. We had to settle the sight back down in order to let that round go back to where we wanted it to go. So that was a big problem back then. Now somebody hands me a 300 Black. So what does that mean in CQB for me? Well, what's great about this platform is I can actually run it as fast as a 5.56. That's huge. That means there's a lot better recoil management. Yes, there's a little bit more impulse coming straight to the rear because of the case is a little bit, the bullet's a little bit heavier, so we're gonna have that. However, the gun's still flat. It still stays inside that combat effective zone, or the zone that I want it to stay in at those ranges. And split times are still the same. So that's huge improvement. Now, let's talk about the 300 Black a little bit more in depth. The requirement, obviously we know AAC put out or drove the requirement to the military to replace the MP5SD, the MP7, the Mark 18, and probably a couple other weapon systems as well. Well, that was more so for the CQB sense. Now, this is a very versatile platform. It's not just a CQB weapon. It can be used out at distance. We're running these guns out to 1,000 meters now with combat effectiveness, just like an AK-47 can be ran. So we have a whole other different area that we're looking into as well, not just the CQB replacement requirement for those other weapon systems I mentioned a second ago, but also what can it do at distance? Well, we know that military requirements, we want to be able to have combat effective point effectiveness out to 500 yards. This weapon system, this 300 Black cartridge does that, and it also has about 5% more energy at those ranges. So I would say that if you could take an AK-47 or a 7.62 x 3.9 cartridge and the 5.56 M4 and have a baby, it's kind of what you're having here. So you're not only replacing those other weapon systems we talked about, but you're also combining something that of a caliber of a weapon system that's been combat proven for almost 70 years now and putting them in one. So now I have 17% more energy with my 300 Black M4 at the muzzle, 17% more energy than a 7.62 x 3.9 out of an AK-47. So you instantly have an energy increase at the muzzle. And again, of course, those energy increases over the M4 round at 500 meters is obviously very, very important as well. Now the bullet is a heavier projectile. So of course we have a different holdover pattern we need to take in consideration, but it's still very combat effective and it's not an extreme trajectory and it's very easy to shoot out to those ranges. So we're kind of covering both ends of the spectrum in both CQB and long range with this caliber. On top of that, you have the benefit of running it as fast as you want, as long as you know how to manage that recoil, and that is huge for us. So that's one of the big checks in the box that we were looking for. Can we manage recoil? Yes. Can we get the terminal ballistics effect that we want, the external ballistics effects, the energy increases? Yes, absolutely. We can certainly put a check in the box. The weapon system itself, what do we have to do to it? change a barrel. That's it. Now, of course, that comes with a new gas system. And what's great about this bullet is it is SAMI spec. It's SAMI approved, which means that there's over 100 companies right now making components for 300 Black. So it's not some Wildcat cartridge anymore. It is becoming standardized. And that is also huge as well when we're looking at a new caliber. In case you don't know what SAMI means, it's the Small Arms and Ammunitions Manufacturer Institute, and they're pretty much the standard. So they've actually taken the 300 Black and standardized it, and actually now there's prints for those companies, those hundreds of manufacturers out there that are now building 300 Blackout components, whether it's barrels, gas systems, suppressors, and everything else, the operating system that needs to be instead of having some wild ass, numbers or something to guess at, or some wildcat round that people are kind of scared to touch. Now there's a standardization where companies can go, yeah, here's exactly what we need to build this off of. So that's another huge advantage of 300 Blackout. All right, so let's go back to that long range segment that we talked about a little bit ago. Now, this is always going to be a controversy with this bullet because people are going to compare it to a sub gun or to an AK-47 bullet. Well, that's not necessarily the case, and so don't think of it that way. It comes down to what the bullet can actually do, because we know the bullet never lies, number one. Number two, we're firing that bullet through an accurate system, the M4. That's what the benefit is here, okay? So you get that accuracy increase, and of course, increased combat effectiveness downrange. So let's talk about the external and then the terminal ballistics. Now, as you know, I like the combat effective zone, so I put the dot on the target as far out as possible. I pull the trigger until I start to need a holdover. Well, we know with the M4, the holdover at 400 is generally the impact hitting the knees, and at 500 generally is hitting the feet or below the feet, depending what kind of bullet and weapon system you're running, of course. That's just a general rule of thumb there. With the 300 Black, let's take a look at how it compares to, we call the military standards at point accuracy, okay, or point combat effectiveness out to 500 meters. That's what the military considers combat effective range, or the max combat effective range. We know that's not true. We know these weapon systems can engage targets effectively out to 1,000 plus meters. Hit. Hit. Oh, baby. Hit. So the weapon system's not that, it's not more inaccurate at those ranges. You may have a little bit more drop. So let's talk about the drop of the 300 Black versus the M4 at that range. So at 500 meters, we have generally 90 to 100 inches of drop with the M4, the 5.56 NATO platform. Now with the 300 Black, about 450 yards or meters, we have the same drop in 90 to 100 inches. So therefore you're not losing much, as you can see. But let's talk about the energy that this thing puts out, because the drop is easy to compensate for. We just have a slightly different holdover. But if you pick up an AK, you pick up an MP5, you pick up an M4, you're gonna have different holdovers anyways. So we're looking at this as a new weapon system that we're gonna have to create a new holdover for at probably 400 and 500 and 600 and on. But the energy increase is what's amazing. At 500, the standard military NATO round has 291 foot-pounds of energy at that distance, okay? This has extremely more foot-pounds of energy at that distance. In fact, it doesn't hit 291 until it gets out to 700 meters. So that's the difference that you're seeing there. So, and of course, going back to the AK-47, that's where you're seeing that 17% increase in energy at the muzzle with this weapon system in an M4 platform versus the AK-47 platform. So again, you get all those added advantages. And what's also great is you going back to this bullet, due to the SAMI spec and all the different manufacturers being able to make ammunition based on that spec, and the gas system and the way this gun works and the lower pressures, there's a plethora of ammunition to choose from to where you can shoot supersonic to subsonic with no gas changes on one gas system, suppressed, unsuppressed, you name it, it's going to work. So that's what's great about this round as well. You can't find that in 5.56. If you can find a subsonic round for 5.56, you're probably going to have issues with it, number one, or it's just going to be really hard and expensive to find. Okay, so again, some other added advantages there. So if you're on the fence about 300 Black, just keep in mind, same mags, same everything on the gun, same bolt, same carrier, different barrel, and the gas system that of course comes with the barrel. That's it. Now if you're gonna buy 300 black, of course you can build it yourself, especially you guys that are hobbyists out there. I used to be that way until I started understanding what mil spec and mil standards and what you know, a production rifle is based around. So go with a good company that can build a dedicated system, upper receiver, that you can swap out, because you know it's going to be spec'd and it's going to be quality controlled and it's going to work. You can hobby build it yourself, but then remember, it's just a hobby gun at that point, okay? So more to come on the 300 black, guys. We're still shooting a lot of rounds to this thing, and we're going to keep testing it. It's not just, it's like an aircraft, you know, it comes out in the military, it's going to crash, it's going to break. We're going to fix these problems, and it's time that's going to tell. But as of right now, hey, it's as fast as an M4, and the energy increase that I get out of this thing, it's hard to not justify it as a good combat effective platform. So again, more to come on it. Stay sharp, be safe. I'm Travis Haley. Thanks for joining me.